I have a little bit of a funny story. On the outskirts of a small town, there was a big old pecan tree just inside the cemetery fence. One day, two boys filled up a bucket full of nuts and sat down by the tree out of sight and began dividing up the nuts. "One for you, one for me, one for you, one for me," said one boy. Several nuts dropped down and rolled down toward the fence, and another boy came riding along on his bicycle. And as he passed, he thought he heard voices from inside the cemetery. So he slowed down to investigate. Sure enough, he heard, "One for you, one for me, one for you, one for me." He just knew what it was. He jumped back on his bike and rode off. Just around the bend, he met an old man with a cane hobbling along. "Come here quick," he said. "You won't believe what I heard. Satan and the Lord are down at the cemetery, dividing up souls." The man said, "Beat it, kid. Can't you see it's hard for me to walk?" But when the boy insisted, though, the man hobbled slowly to the cemetery. Standing by the fence, they heard, "One for you, one for me, one for you, and one for me." The old man whispered, "Boy, you've been telling me the truth. Let's see if we can see the Lord." Shaking with fear, they peered through the fence, yet were still unable to see anything. The old man and the boy gripped the wrought iron bars of the fence tighter and tighter as they tried to get a glimpse of the Lord. At last they heard, "One for you, one for me. That's all. Now let's go down and get those nuts by the fence." They say the old man had the lead for a good half a mile before the kid on the bike passed him. So goes our concept of God, right? Well, this past week I was in my office here at the center and I was putting together some thoughts for today's sharing. And I just needed to listen to some music, so I turned on YouTube and I turned on Mozart, and somehow that just wasn't getting it for me. So I scrolled through some of the composers, and there was one that I really loved, and I met, not personally, but I met his music in ministerial school many years ago. And his name was Alan Hovhaness. And he's a great composer. Was born in 1911 and passed in 2000. But when I first listened to his music, it was deeply, deeply spiritual to me. And he wrote one song called "Mysterious Mountain." And it got me into a place of deep reflection around ministry. And I thought to myself, what a strange vocation I have. Strange and wonderful. Because what I'm an advocate of and for is something that's not physical. And that you and I deal with physicality every moment of our lives. And yet there is this advocacy, both in music and art and in speech, in the spoken word, for us to uncover that which is not physical within us, but that we feel a great affinity for. It is our very essence. It is our very life. It is the essence of meaning and connection with each other. It's why we come to places such as this, to refresh ourselves by the well, in a sense, around our conviction and our connection with each other, and how important that is. In contrast to that, I was recalling a time when I was at San Diego State University and I was taking a class on social anthropology. And the professor said, Human beings are nothing more than social animals looking for connection. And I had some degree of exposure to truth teachings at that time and some degree of understanding, and I just kind of shook my head that that's not true, Mr. Professor. I said that to myself, and I always recall my mother at home when we would watch something on National Geographic, and they would be advocating for a belief that human beings came from apes. And my mother, I remember her just stamping her feet and going like this to the TV. I did not come from monkeys. And I said, it's okay, Ma. It's okay. You don't have to believe that if you don't want to. But I would say that to highlight a little bit around that the body physical is a result of an evolution. We have teeth, hands, ears, feet, as some of our other cousins do in the physical. But it is our choice to identify with whether or not we cling to an identity of being of the body, or whether or not there's something else that is continually being born through us, a divine remembrance that we are a soul inhabiting a body. That has been something that has occurred to me as a result of my inner life. How about you? There may be times when you're sitting in the silence and you come up out of that time of prayer and meditation and you're in deep gratitude for the physical vehicle of your body. But there's a clarity that you also have that you are an essence or a individual spirit that is inhabiting the body physical. That it doesn't have to be some kind of a contested belief one way or the other. But it's a beautiful instrument. And that it is there for us to find meaning and connection with each other. Meaning can be derived in many ways on a personal level. A person that stays home on Sunday and works on his wood in his wood shop can create deep meaning. Or someone that's a builder can create deep meaning. Or someone that even cleans houses for a living can create meaning for their lives and stand back and say, wow, what a great job I did for this family. Meaning comes to us individually. Well, meaning on a spiritual level comes in different ways also. My father-in-law, who I dearly love, who I met when I was 46 and he was 77, and now I'm 60 and he's 91. A man of great character, a great examined life, who gets up in the morning much like I do at around 3 a.m. at times, and we jokingly call that time of the morning monk time or soul time, because it's when, at least in North America, things are calm, things are quiet, people are sleeping, and that there is a receptivity to the influences of the soul, of the deeper self, where we truly understand that we are souls in a body. And he wrote a book called If God Is. And it came, these poems in this book, one of which I will share with you this morning, came to him when he was going through a time of doubt about God, even though he had spent his whole life 60 years of his life. And at the age of 91, he is still in a therapeutic process with certain people, clients, that come to his home and seek him out for the deeper wisdom that he has about how to be in this life. And he says, poetry is filled with metaphor, at least for him. If God is, when he was having a really hard time about not feeling God, he started to say, well, if God is, then is God in an object, such as running water, or a smoky fire, or a snowflake? Or if God is a circle, if God is a bonsai tree, if God is a poet, is God in this ivied wall? And I would like to share this poem called If God is an Ivied Wall. But he had an interesting comment prior to the poem. He said, I caught this poem as if it was in the air, in midsummer in our garden, because he had been going through, he had had a detached retina, and he couldn't see. He says, while my eyes recovered from surgery, after a detached retina peeled off like a window shade coming down, one eye required scalpel, the other laser. I was out of season, out of focus, and out of spiritual fuel, as my blurred vision gave me winter and wall. And then I saw the green tendrils dancing along the top of the fence, hanging out with no place to get a grip, trusting the vines, clinging to the wall, allowing them to climb beyond certainty. The image was an echo of my condition, unanchored, unbalanced, yet moving to some faith notes deep within me. Here's the poem. If God is my ivied wall, seems to be through my eyes now gray in winter, when laminating ice and snow stick against the stone and a pale sun laminates the trail of leaves that keep lifting until they now hang out along the top like bewildered green snakes. Then we have arrived here together, God, where I too ran out of wall, swaying in my soul's vertigo and searching for a firm next rock on which to land and gain a purchase for the last leg of a climb we began so long ago on what seemed to be solid ground. But now I can take a dare. Are you suggesting that I must climb solely on the strength of the vine into the air? Metaphor is stated to be words that represent something else, some other symbol. So what he was saying was that he needed the wall, but that he was more than the wall, that he was like the ivy moving up the wall and reaching for the sun. Each of us have walls in our lives, do we not? Each of us has walls that seem impenetrable, but they are also the structure of our lives. As human beings, as spiritual beings having a human experience, we require certain structures and walls in order to climb, in order to take to the next level. And as I read this poem during the week, I said to myself, what is the purpose? What is the purpose of Earth School? And some of you may say, the purpose of Earth School is a great adventure, filled with all types of wonderful pleasures and things and creativity. And for other people, Earth School may seem like a trail of tears that we go through our whole life. And we ask, if God is, why? 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 But it's very important to go perhaps beyond why and to ask ourselves, who am I? What am I within the context of Earth School? Why am I here? Seems almost a question that is unanswerable. But sitting with the question of who am I within the context of this life experience is so important. And what am I? My father-in-law, Warren Moulton, his subtitle of the book is A Poetic Search for God Within. We require this definition in our lives. But we have to be, if we're going to climb our metaphorical wall, we have to be rooted in the soil below it. How are we rooting ourselves? I would like to offer what I do to root myself in this life. It's a series of proclamations or affirmations that you can use in your life too. Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of the Unity Movement, said that the will faculty is the executive power of mind. So I would like us to exercise using the will faculty here, so that your experience here today is not just about the music or perhaps something within the message that you maybe found of value, but that you have an assertion of your will to claim the depth of God that dwells within you. What I use at home in my spiritual practice is what I call hearing. H-E-R-E-ing. I will to be here. I will to be present. I will to make nothing wrong. I will to allow the soul to have it, whatever it is. Whatever's coming into consciousness that isn't true, I allow the soul to have it, whatever it is. I am my immortal consciousness. I am that I am. This is how we climb the wall and transcend the wall, and yet use the wall as a context of our climb. You are a spiritual being. I'm not here to entertain. I am here to promote your awakening into God, into the spirit that you are. There's an old saying that says, a minister's job is to comfort the afflicted and to afflict the comfortable. I so agree with that. And it's not about doing anything that isn't for the highest good. There are times in my own inner growth that there is a tremendous challenge, a tremendous affliction of letting go aspects of my own belief, my own most cherished belief, that I cling to like a wall in winter, where my soul feels dormant and unable to climb. You ever been there? And yet, what's the promise? What happens in spring, this time of year, right now? Growth, renewal, budding and blossoming and flowering. The flowering of consciousness, as Eckhart Tolle calls it. This is not just placating, talking about truth. You may have noticed during the time of meditation there was an encouragement, an invitation for the soul spirit within you to blossom. It's springtime. Isn't there an old song? There's springtime in my soul today. Forgive my voice. If God is real, then what does that make you and me? What does that make us? Is this real or not? Is that which is the inspirational literature of all faith traditions and religions, is it real or not? Just this morning, there was a great affirmation of the woman I shared with you. She utilized the truth to set her free. A great example that God is present in her life and in yours and in mine. This is real. So I would invite us for a moment, if you're willing, let us use these statements as an affirmation. I will offer them once again, and then I invite you to repeat them with me. I will to be here. I will to be present. I will to make nothing wrong. I allow the soul to have it, whatever it is. I am my immortal consciousness. I am that I am. Now, you said it once, half-heartedly. Can you say it with gusto? I will to be here. I will to be present. I will make nothing wrong. I allow the soul to have it. Whatever it is. I am my immortal consciousness. I am that I am. Woo! I was speaking yesterday with someone when I was out and about. Someone called me from France, going through a tremendous challenge, a health challenge. And she said, Bruce, I so want to believe. Will you pray with me? Someone calling me from France wanting support. And so I was sitting in the parking lot of Lansdowne over in Richmond. She was sitting in her house in France. And we prayed together. And she said, "Bruce, I feel it." I feel it. I only believed with my mind. I'm going through all of what is necessary medically to take care of this situation, but I feel it. Can you feel it? Can you allow what is actually true? In your life, right now. I work with people all the time that are suffering. It's a great privilege to be in their presence as they talk about what's happening in their lives. And I say, let's pray. And my form of prayer is to sit across from them and to affirm the truth of being that Myrtle and Charles Fillmore and so many others affirm over and over again until they feel it. And that's why I was inviting us to say this. You say it until you feel it. Because that's when your subconscious mind says, "Oh, you really mean this, huh? Okay, you're not just saying words. You really want this? You really want to be whole? You really want to be well? You really want to be prosperous? You really want to be loved? All right." It sets the wheels of the universe in motion to bring forth the good that you are proclaiming in that moment. This is the actual design. We are not meant to remain in limitation and smallness. We are not meant to remain in grandiosity or egoic inflation, thinking that we're more special than anybody else. We are designed for oneness and truth with our Creator. I know it's true. And I am increasingly working with my being. How about you? If God is true for you, in you. This is the good news of all religions throughout all time and eternity. God is. I invite you to just allow that in and see what good can happen for you. Thank you very much.